We're live?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome all to the March 2nd meeting of the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. As always, begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the minutes of February 2nd.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm
Unanimous.
voting, so I wasn't here.
Okay, you're abstaining?
Yes, I'm abstaining.
Okay, so 401. Okay, rate discussion. Yes, the rate study. Do we have a copy of that here?
No, it's not here.
Oh, okay, there you go. I didn't bring mine with me.
I have extras here. If you need
I
them.
didn't bring it up.
Can you pass them down or
You're
down?
good.
It's okay, I got
Okay.
extras.
I need it.
Could you pass another one?
Oh, you have one? No, okay. Yep.
So you have one.
That's in the kit from last
Oh,
week,
yeah.
last month.
Scott needs one.
Actually,
It's in my truck.
Do you want me
Yeah,
to-
I forgot to run out of the house. So, with the updated information, okay, actually, this is a public hearing and discussion tonight this month, right?
No,
No.
So I don't think we.
Oh, that's
scheduled
next
a
month.
public hearing, yeah.
The public hearing is next month.
yep.
So, the recommendations, you've got the recommendations in front of you on pages 8 and 9, for water and for sewer. Taking into account, well, actually, no, this is with and without debt exclusion.
Mr. Chairman, are we
And then,
stand on that?
and then a 50% debt exclusion.
Combination, yeah.
And then, yeah, okay, there is no,
Mr. Chairman, do we know how we stand on the debt exclusion?
we do not know at this point. How is that committee going? Are they close to a recommendation?
I believe they're gonna make a recommendation, and I think it's gonna go, that they think that we should be pushing for all on the rate users. I personally disagree with it,
Okay, I guess then we'd be, alternative A is
but.
fully on the ratepayers, alternative B is with a debt exclusion.
But regardless, with or without it, that hasn't been voted on,
Yeah.
so we would have to make a vote on rates,
We would have to go as if it's not
not factoring that.
at this point, and then if
And I also believe that.
that recommendation should change, or if we should go to that direction, then
But,
future rate adjustments will be
so,
accordingly.
so construction and everything on this, we wouldn't be repaying debt on the treatment plant in this fiscal year,
Right.
so it wouldn't factor into this decision regardless. So it wouldn't be until that loan starts to get repaid that we really need to.
I believe what they did was, because you'll see down below that in the circle there, that 94%, that is the retained earning line, I believe. Or
Which line are you looking at?
on alternative A, you've got the line of circles that runs across.
Yeah.
That's the percent of the budget that you have in retained earnings, I believe. So what they're doing is, I believe, they're starting to front load a little bit of debt now in order to soften the blow when that hits. It kind of, gradually increase rather than having a large hit all at once in, what would be 2025, when that construction debt started coming due.
So you're talking 12% and
12%, without any kind of
No debt
intervention,
exclusion, yeah.
we're talking about a 12% increase this year on water.
water only.
There'll be 5% or so.
Yeah, if we had help.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
and if it's a 50/50, it would be 8%.
For you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Jen, did we provide them information, and as of what time did we give them information as to what we have for revenues this year based on other changes that we made?
Yeah, we did probably 2 weeks at most before this was completed. We updated them right before with all the information we had at that time.
So the revenues, that they could kind of project out what the anticipated revenues for
Right.
this
Yes.
year are? And these are the numbers they came up with?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember
It might have even been the week before. It was
that
close.
meeting. There was a meeting, and they threw out a proposal, and there was a big, long discussion. I think you were in on that
I
one.
was,
There was a long discussion about,
I just-
there
I
were
know other board
some other
members-
things that weren't,
I know other board members weren't there, and I just wanted to kind of get
Yep.
the information out there. Because
Yeah,
I
the-
don't like just blindly
yeah,
voting on rates to increase based on their projection if we weren't factoring in, we had a lot of things that we were factoring
yes.
or counting on that were not included in the revenues that were the efforts that the water operators are making for the meter replacements and catching unaccounted for water. So as I've said before, they may have projected 12%, but if we're not capturing that revenue, we may only need to raise them 10%. But
And as you can see, those bubbles, like I said, for this fiscal year, it says 94%. We would be carrying a retained earnings of approximately 94% of revenue. So, I mean, we'd be a little bit heavy on retained earnings, but that,
Yeah,
you can
we're
see,
gonna draw-
you can see that over the
dropping.
next couple of years, we start drawing that
Right down
down,
to nothing,
and we're
yeah.
down to about 22%.
That's not a lot of
At the
money.
low, actually, at the low, we get down to 19%.
Bob, on the debt exclusion, there's no way of us trying to help sell it, how it would benefit, to benefit the town? the
I mean, my
capital
personal
improvement?
opinion is that that board should be making a recommendation, and it should be listed, but the article should be presented, and let the people vote.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Because I just think there's a lot of benefits, and
I think the decision by the Board of Selectmen whether or not to put a question on the warrant article on the warrant
Doesn't that
is
seem
going to be
logical?
based on that committee.
right.
That's where it should
the
go,
impression I got.
correct? Don't you
That's
think?
why that committee was established, to
Yeah.
make that decision.
Right, but that would be a recommendation from the
Recommendation,
committee.
yeah.
I think it should be,
I think that.
Why aren't we putting the
I
article?
think the question, then that is something we can certainly do. But in the meantime, we have to determine what to do with the rates.
And the other way to attack that is if it doesn't go through the selectmen or anything in that avenue, you could always make a motion on the floor to amend that town meeting. You just have to
Right.
have it prepared ahead of time.
Right.
I think first we gotta make sure the question is there.
And make sure the
Right.
question gets on the warrant. The warrant won't be open, God, that won't get
It's
open.
open today.
Oh, it opened
Yeah,
today?
excuse me, yesterday.
Okay, so we just have to make sure that the article gets there, and then whether it's sponsored by the selectmen, or sponsored by us, or sponsored by whoever,
Yeah.
I think we
they can
gotta-
make their recommendation, and we can
Right.
make our recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should be proactive and just sponsor the article ourselves and not wait.
Right, and, if it's put before the voters and they vote it down, it just goes back to the default of the ratepayers pay it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
But at least give them the option.
you have to take a shot.
Right,
Because, there's there's other things that will factor into that, which, you know, we'll start having those
And
conversations
that,
pretty soon.
that town meeting doesn't happen until the end of
May 20,
May.
I think it's May
Right.
23rd.
So we have some time to make sure we have all the data that we need.
Facts and figures, you want a motion to?
As far as, right now, what's on the warrant, what's on our agenda is the rates. So I want to stick with the rates. We can talk about that
In
further on
essence, this
down the
does
road.
affect the rates, though.
Yeah.
Yes, that decision will affect the rates, for sure.
Well, I think tentatively, we've got to go with a rate increase line that we don't have any support. And then you can always change the rate increase. if
We
get
can,
the
we can always decrease the rate later on, or decrease the amount of increase later on if that happens.
The worst case scenario is.
If that were to
12%.
happen,
It's,
we could almost eliminate an increase for a year, and then
Or you-
continue on.
yeah, and it just factors into the
Yeah.
future one, we just raise
Right.
less, or
Yep,
redo the calculations to see where we stand.
yes.
I'd make a recommendation, we go with the 12% tentatively.
So
Okay.
you have to have your public hearing before.
We have to have a public hearing before we make a decision,
Yep.
but that's where we're at right now. Well, in the April meeting, we'll have a public hearing. After the public hearing, then we can have, it has to be announced and all of that.
Yep.
Do we put what our proposed rate increase into the
No.
announcement, or?
No, you just have to, we'll advertise and put out that there will be a meeting regarding the upcoming water sewer rate increases for fiscal year.
Okay. Now, sewer, I believe, that was in the old study, and that didn't change. And I don't believe that was very high this week. I think that was only that might have only been a 2 or 3%.
The sewer's kind of
That,
it's set basically
yeah.
from Webster.
We've
We-
got
we
the
don't have
I&I,
expenses.
With the I and I.
We've got all the I&I stuff.
Those are your biggest expenses in the last 2 years.
Did you?
I was just gonna offer, if you're talking about it, you've had a fixed cost in them for years, and I've been tried to, encourage them to update it based on information, and that's kind of in this spreadsheet here,
Okay.
so it might.
So, we'll add this,
Might be able to discuss, kind of what I'm seeing here. I'm not saying, we're done this. Oh, sorry. Well, I'm technically not,
Yeah, you're the next agenda item.
but I'll move over
But,
here.
yeah.
But there might be a reason just to proactively change it, even though they are not changing, just, so that you can set your rates based on the
Likelihood
of
of,
it being this for this fiscal year, still gotta get closed, still gotta close. This only goes through 20. You still gotta do 21, and we're in 22, so there's still stuff happening, and my instinct tells me that the costs have not been fixed for the last 15 years or whatever.
No, I know, it hasn't changed in a long time.
Right, so you may want to consider, and we could talk about what number you should bump that part to, and then that'll just roll out to your rates.
So the rate increase for sewer this year was to go from $4.12 to $4.74 per cubic foot, and the quarterly rate of $93.38 to increase to $107.39.
and where'd that come from?
That was the rate study that was done back in
That was
2020.
the previous one, yeah,
original
nothing's
one?
changed
The original, yeah.
on water sewer, it's just the I&I project. And that's we spent less than,
Yeah, we can't.
even with adding on, we still
Came in
less.
under budget, but we still got a lot more done, so
Right.
that was a
Yeah,
positive.
that was a win-win there. And we've actually found some good infiltration. Okay, so we've got the information in front of us. The recommendation is 12%.
So I have one other question
Sure.
before we move forward. Did they factor in the uncollected revenues, or are we raising rates based on not collecting revenues that should be collected?
They did not have any of the information of uncollected revenues because we received that after.
So these rates are being raised to account for uncollected debt
They are.
Uncollected revenues that we should be collecting.
No, they don't know that there's any uncollected revenues.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But we,
Don't read them.
but based on information that we have
We-
$300,000 sitting out there.
Right, but they did not know that.
They're based on our balance.
Yeah, so it's
balance books.
not factored in.
Yeah, not
Correct.
factored in.
Right, so that $300,000 difference is more than what we're equating for revenue. Where we're looking for 200,000, you know, we technically wouldn't need to raise the rates if we collect that. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, okay.
Because if FY '22 was 1.7 and FY '23 with a 12% increase goes to 1.9,
That's why the.
that's 200,000. If we've got 300,000 sitting out there in uncollected revenues,
Oh, 1.7,
So you
1.9,
turned it
yes,
over.
okay. Yep.
we still have a surplus of 100,000 if we go through the efforts to make
If we,
collections.
and we did get that,
Are you-
we
are
did
you-
get that information
Are you
finally.
budgeting based on actual revenues,
Yeah.
book
Yes.
revenues or commitments?
So unfortunately, we don't know because we're not given the information.
Okay.
So,
We budget on commitment.
Oh, you budget on commitments,
but
okay.
how can you budget on commitment and set rates? Because DOR won't allow you to
Right.
set rates if your revenue,
Right.
if your revenue is 2 million, but you should have got 3 million for commitments, the DORs only allow you to base it on the 2 million,
Right.
so.
Right,
I
and
don't
they
understand that
they
we can
question us on a
actually do-
regular basis, and
Oh, I know.
adjustments have to be made.
But that's why I say I think it has to be off of
Actuals,
collected, not,
Right.
correct.
so.
No, that's how I do it, so.
Right. So-
We're getting there.
And right now, we have no plan to implement anything, right, for collections?
At the moment, the way it's been done through the collector's office for the past 8 years or so, 10 years ago, when they stopped sending that information out, they attach it to property tax.
Right. But if-
Anything that's unpaid,
They haven't
but
been
it lays out there, and then we get paid when the property tax gets paid.
Right, so if
They leave
people
it.
don't have a mortgage, and typically a mortgage company will pay it off, but they're shying away from that now, so I can't say that mortgage companies are all just paying it and then tacking on the mortgage
Right.
now. So we have no idea what's getting paid through liens or, whatever method, so.
So I can offer, the town I work for, we actually shut people off. We go through a whole process, we notify them with letters, and then we go out, and the minute we start painting their curb box,
That's when they get paid.
they
You send
come
out
out
a-
with checks, and we get paid pretty quick.
You send out 100 shut-off notices, 80 of them pay when they see the blue paint, and the other 80 come running out. Can you wait? I'll
Yep.
run down and pay when you're sitting there with the truck and the wrench.
Yep.
I know, I do the same thing.
I-
My uncollected is under $5,000.
I know, Mr. Chairman, on that list, there was a lot of properties that were owned by mega landlords.
Mhm.
And that's another major issue I have. You have people that have
They're collecting
income
rent.
property,
Income property,
that's a business for
it's a
them.
business.
And now the ratepayers that pay their bills have to subsidize
And
that.
Mrs. Jones is paying for the
Right.
property owner.
Yep, we're
Well, we all know we have to act on it soon.
working, we just got through a public information request, we did get the information.
Yeah.
We have it, now we can start,
Obviously, you can't spray paint the road now.
no.
It still works.
Okay, so the rates, so we're looking at 12 there, and you had mentioned the amounts, those sound pretty modest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the percentage is there, but it's not,
Hold
it's
on.
not, I thought it was very low. It's like 2 or 3%.
For what,
That's-
sewer?
Yeah, sewer, that was to move it.
15%.
For,
Yep, fiscal year '23 is a 15% increase, which is, and then next year, they have nothing listed.
okay, so that was when the I&I, because the I&I will come on the books, and that's right, and then there's nothing, after that, it flattens right out. So, all right, any other discussion on rates that we'll need to You know, and we'll have the information from coming up in the next item.
Will you be
That we'll go
putting,
into that too.
will you be putting a warrant article on?
For,
For the debt exclusion?
Yeah,
That's,
because
I mean,
that's
I
something
think-
that
I know you
we're
want
gonna
to-
have to get to.
okay,
that.
we're gonna have to, yes.
So we need to-
All right, well, how long is the warrant open for?
Let me double check the email, bear with.
Okay, so yeah, we should, if it's the wish of the board to
Make
do
a
that
motion to put
ourselves.
It closes on Monday, March 21st, sorry to interrupt, Tom.
Make a motion to put an article on the warrant for debt exclusion.
Okay, motion's been made.
Second.
Okay, one made and seconded. Discussion?
Just a question, Bob, even though that committee's working on that, we can like, regardless of their.
We need to do what we need to
Like I
do.
said, I think that, I mean, that
That's a
committee
selectmen's
is,
committee.
Yeah,
the selectman committee is to establish a board to review it and make a recommendation.
Yeah.
So if their recommendation is that, they present it at town meeting, and the voters get to take that into consideration when they make their votes.
The finance board.
but if we don't have anything from them, at least we're being proactive by having the, article.
Right,
And you at least want to have the placeholder there regardless, you know,
Is it
that
a-
way, if
is
you
it
miss
debt
it and the
exclusion?
selectmen
Yes.
have the recommendation from that board,
Sure.
and if they didn't have a placeholder on the
yes,
warrant,
because it'll go away
and the
when,
board recommends, yeah, we think it should be a debt exclusion, but they didn't put an
Put on
article
the
there,
warrant to
then
vote.
you're out of luck
No,
anyway,
right.
so I would at least get the placeholder there.
right.
You know, we can determine whether you pass over it or whatever,
Yeah, we can always vote to pass over,
So-
yeah.
but you at least want to have a placeholder there. so.
You have a vote on that, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman?
motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
That was it.
Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Mr. Brinkman,
Good evening.
this is the Webster True Up. We have to go through
So
regular.
I'm gonna give you a little bit. To tell you that I didn't receive much
Some of the data
information
from them?
until Monday this week, going back and forth. Because they had given me the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
the one with the big numbers and letters on it. It had all this linked data in the cloud that needed the password to get to.
Yeah.
And I was going back and forth with them for a long time, trying to determine how to get to that info.
Okay,
And
yeah.
they said, oh, this is how you get to the info, and they sent it to me directly.
Well, as you would normally with linked data, you just
Right,
include it.
so, because this is the summary, but I can, what's useful here is I can talk to a few things that I'm seeing from, you know, my review of this and my initial review of what I see. Apologize for the small size of the other one. That one's not as important, but that's some of the stuff that I think needs drilling into. But I also, part of what I want to hear from you is, I typically take a higher view when I'm doing this. I don't, it's not about
The details.
the
you're looking
single
at.
dollars, it's about, does this make sense? Is there something awry,
Mhm.
you know, because me going in and checking their books and saying, did
Yeah,
this
no.
happen or that happened, that's not necessarily something that, at least in my opinion, is typical.
Yeah, I would assume you're looking at it saying, this shouldn't be in, this should be in.
Well, but also, so, we can talk about some of the details of the actual IMA itself and what goes into this. This is everything that they got me on Monday.
Good job.
And I have to go through it. So the first sheet is what you got last fall.
Right?
The picture, it was a picture of it. Well, I have it in a spreadsheet, but can't really do anything with it. I have to blow it up because it's got all these links and whatnot. So some of the things that I'm seeing, and some of them are good, you know, your Dudley percentage flow, this top stuff, your flow, pretty stable.
Yeah.
It's been about the same, and that's what we predicted when we did the IMA 20 years ago was, you know, your flow is about the same as their flow. What's in the wastewater is the same, so why not just keep it simple? So then we get into where they start looking at their budget and peeling it apart. And some of the things in here, I'm gonna have to confirm. For instance, if you look at 2011, and they do tell me that we've cleared up 11 and 12, but I have to verify that, because I don't recall that. That's a little ways ago for me. But they're showing, say, they have their full budget was 8.6 million, but most of the rest of the time, it's like, 4 million. So what was going on there, that's the kind of thing. I know they're showing a big debt service. One of the things that's curious to me, not in a bad way, but if you look at the third line under treatment O&M, total operating expenses, they really haven't changed in 10 years. They're essentially the same number. The first one's 2.8, the last one's 2.9.
Yeah, that's,
So, I commend them if, that's the case for keeping their costs stable. Where I start to get a little more concerned is, we move down to collection system costs. That one stays pretty flat. That's the negative 305, and it goes to negative 369, but the formula is set to be really fixed. Now, I have to make sure that their size of their system or what they're doing in their system hasn't changed over a 10-year period. There's some capital projects that kind of indicate that they may have been doing some stuff out there, so I just want to make sure that, that's consistent, and because that one is like a fixed formula in there. It doesn't, there's not a lot of movement in there. I have an IMA that I'm working on right now where we actually look at the miles of pipe and compare the miles of pipe to the total miles of pipe and say, all right, you're going to pay on that basis, the number of pump stations, things like that, which makes more sense than the way we set this up. But at the time, it worked. It worked. Maybe the next IMA we change it. So they take the indirect costs out. They're pretty large, and they grew over the period. So essentially, their costs of running the treatment, the wastewater went down because their indirects went up. So we get charged back indirects based on a formula where we look at the sources of the indirects, because they get them from the assessors and from the treasurer and from the, all these different departments. And I said, when we're looking at this, well, assessors don't do anything for Dudley. It has nothing to do with your bill being generated, so we should not be allocating any costs. Like their billing system, whatever, the collector. Well, there's one bill for Dudley, there's, 12,000 in Webster or whatever it is. You shouldn't be paying for, 20% of that. So we've kind of peeled that apart. But when they add that back in, where's that line?
we're talking about which?
Last
that's-
one in yellow?
No, there's one that talks about the
You're talking, this
Last
is
one
on
was
the,
first yellow.
plus maybe it's the plus indirects. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, plus indirects.
Plus indirects,
That's what I
that's
was
the one I'm
looking
looking at. So that number went up, went from 253 to 373, but their budget didn't change, so, does it
So it's
make
almost
sense?
a 50% increase.
Does that make sense? Yeah, maybe the cost of running those departments were, but was it really an increase in services to Dudley as a result of that? So in the middle box here, that first orange box, they're doing a lot of plus minuses. They calculate what your O&M cost is, and then there's other costs that have been built in, essentially replacement and, so this is to come up with the treatment costs. That's that middle orange box, and then the bottom one is debt. So in looking at this, they had considerable replacement treatment capital costs. They go from 125 all the way up to 746,000. That's a pretty big nut. Because this is debt service, but it's not the plant debt service that they went through when they did their upgrade. So I have to go through those, and that's what the second page is some of the detail, and there's some items in here that when I look at what they're called, I'm like, it's not really a treatment plant cost. For instance, line 26, I don't know what that is, hook loader truck. Yeah. That doesn't sound like something used at the treatment plant. I gotta figure out what that is, but they allocated 100% to the plant. So you're paying.
You know what that is? They have like a 2-ton truck with the multi-purpose body on it, I think, when I use the word hook truck, where you can drop off a container.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
So,
Truck, yeah.
well, like a trash truck that has
Yeah.
the boxes.
Okay, yeah,
The
yeah.
truck can come out,
a
multi-purpose
roll-off.
body, roll off, then you can, I've seen it, and they can hook and pick something up.
Okay, well,
You know,
maybe that's treatment plant.
I don't know
but
if
we
that's
gotta- we get-
sludge or trash or what, but I know what
Yeah.
it is.
Moving sludge around the.
Yeah, you know?
I'm pretty sure sludge is.
No, they haul that,
Oh,
haul.
It's
they-
done by a
Yeah,
cylinder,
but I
they
mean,
just haul it off.
I know what they're saying when I see that. I've seen it.
Well, if the truck has a plate on it, then it's outside the plant, right?
Generally, it's gonna go outside the plant, so, line 20 and, that's the interest, but there's another line that has the capital. It's sewer read device. Well, to me, that sounds like a reader for billing or something like that, right? There's no sewer readers that you would need relative, it's
No, it
not
would be
something
for
to use
their-
it in the plant.
It'd be for their town.
It's for their town, but they're allocating some of those costs to you guys. And there's a few like that in here. There's one for, a couple for sewer SCADA. So they have treatment plant SCADA lines, which, okay, that's stuff that's for us, but then they have sewer SCADA lines. And some of those costs are allocated. Well, again, I think they probably need to get peeled out. And when we start peeling these out, the amount that they're saying you owe at the end of this starts going down. And get down considerably from a big picture view. But again, these are layers I have to peel back from these documents that they've handed me. Shouldn't take a lot of time to do that, honestly, because again,
Now that you have them.
now that I have them, it's essentially what I plan to do is make my own one of these
Yep.
and say, all right, I went through everything. This is what I believe this should look like, with my numbers, and have them say, okay, where'd this come from? And I'll tell them the different pieces. And at the end of the day, we'll come to some agreement relative to this. And then I'll come back and say, well, this is where we think should be. And I can't tell you where it's gonna be, honestly, but I believe that it'll be less than what they're saying now, is, the amount owed. Looking at what you've been paying, the 462, I do feel there's the line, it's about midway through the second orange block, starts with 457. So if you run that line across, that number's gone up to 603. And that's kind of what they're saying your O&M costs are. I'm not saying the 603 is accurate, but that gives me a sense that that's probably the direction things are heading. So if you're at 462, you're 100 short or something like that. So this is where, when you're budgeting, you might want to look at what you're allocating for that and potentially bump it up. And 100 probably going to be there in the right range, even after you come here, because this doesn't have 21 on here.
Right.
So 21's
Right.
likely going to come in probably on the negative side, and then we're in the middle of 22. And if 22 looks like 21, then we're going to be in the same place.
And I know they just got a new permit. A new Nifty's permit. So-
Yeah, well, everyone, are they 5 or under 5? They're under 5, right?
I think they might have been over.
Okay. Because everyone 1 to 5 got the same permit,
Right.
and everyone less than 1 got the same permit,
Everyone under 1 got the general permit, and then 1 to 5 got
a different general
a
permit.
different general permit, and then over 5 is another different.
So you're you, at this point, you're saying less payments by Dudley, 462.
Right.
That 462 should be.
I would
We should
think
probably,
you'd probably be
we
there.
haven't, we've been
It hasn't
talking about it
changed.
for years and we haven't
And
done anything.
I remember communicating with them, tell us what it should be so that you can adjust things. And that's gonna be, I guess, part of my discussion with them will be, how much do you want to put on Dudley, given that you haven't given this data to them in 10 years? How much of the ultimate is owed by you? Because technically, you can only go back 3 years, when you're looking at,
But when
in
I
terms of legal.
But when I looked at the numbers, it looks like they end loaded it, so that if you only go by the 3 years.
Yes.
It goes to their benefit as opposed to.
Possibly, but there are provisions in the IMA that if you don't do this timely, It's $500 each time.
Right, and it
And
says
it's-
in there it's supposed to be annual.
Yes, and so I added it up, I forget what it was like $60,000, so we could say, well, you owe us, this much. I don't think that's the approach to take right now,
No,
but that should be part of I would believe that's part of the discussion.
Let me ask you this, Paul, all this work we're doing on I to control all the leakage, if there was a meter, and a meter reading should be going down with all the I work, wouldn't that affect the amount of gallonage that's being treated?
So the actual
In
amount
that
of
respect.
gallonage, I mean, the thing with I and it's so weather related. You have a dry year, I think 2020 was a dry year, and that number's down.
Yes, it was.
So, things bounce around. The whole thing, at least when I talk to people about it's, you have to do it regardless if you see the results of it, because
Yeah.
it's, everyone else is doing it. And so on their bond, they got plenty of money they're throwing at They're not charging you for it, but they're putting money into their system as well. So they're, if you have two systems that are sitting next to each other, one does and the other one doesn't, well,
You're gonna see it.
you're slowly gonna grow and they're gonna go down. That's just what's gonna happen. In
So
your
if they're
case,
doing it as well, we're
if
still
you're,
gonna,
you're
we're
gonna
still
be the
gonna
same
coming down this
percentage
way.
at the end of
we're
the
the
day,
same, they maintain the same percent.
which, that's
And
where you
that's-
wanna be. You wanna be.
We've been, as low as 1744
Yeah,
and as high as, looks like 2419
yep.
as
That
a
must
percent
have been a
of their
wet year,
total plan.
2019.
And I wouldn't even have expected it to move that much, but that's the data that's there, and I don't think it's worthwhile, arguing about it, because it's in the range that we anticipate.
Right.
What else did I want to talk about? Now, that's pretty much the majority of it at this point.
So the first page is,
This page is their
Their-
summary of
their
the true
summary,
up.
yeah.
Each one of these pages, each one of these columns is 20-something pages inside this book. So they have all these pages that they do these calculations to come up with these individual numbers. So I need to go through and go, all right, they included this, they didn't include this, this number makes sense, this number doesn't make sense. And so there's, several pages that do that. And, over the next couple of months, I plan to be, having the back and forth dialogue. I'll come up with a long list of, I need more information, or I have a question regarding this, or I don't like the way this looks, can you explain it, that kind of stuff.
So if like they're charging sewer skater on top of treatment plant skater, sewer skater could be their pump station.
Exactly,
Which have nothing to do with us.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, one of the ones
in
they
the
charge you
collection system.
for
Right.
is, what number is it? I saw it on here. It's essentially the pump station roofs.
Yeah, pump
Yeah,
station
that's
roofs,
down the
that's
bottom.
that's a good one.
And that one they did charge off.
pump station roof's
I
29,
know, so you work, you don't know our roofs.
29, yep.
And they said that's 100% treatment. So.
Oh, okay, that's what that breakdown is, treatment and
Right.
new.
Right, so they designate how much of the amount of money is treatment, and then out of that, they do a designation, because if it's a new thing, you pay a different percentage than if it's a replacement. And that's a
Yeah, so-
complex issue, we kind of,
So calling pump station roofs, so that's 100% treatment?
yes, and
But
it's,
that's, why would that be?
it's
we wouldn't
it's
be concerned
incorrect,
with that
it's
at all.
incorrect,
Yeah.
it's incorrect.
Okay,
Unless,
I understand now.
and
All
so
right.
those are the things I saw in here, there's probably about 6 lines that are like that.
Yeah, like radio read devices, 75% treatment. What does
How?
that have to do
Yeah.
with the treatment plant?
It doesn't.
Yeah, it has to do with collection, yeah. Right. Okay,
Sludge landfill, I know that we paid them in the past, but I want to understand what that is. It's, $70,000. They're asking you to pay, what is that, 100% new, so you're paying 25% of that?
So what is a sludge landfill?
So they had one over
They
there.
had one there years ago on one of their treatment plants, they buried it in the back,
Right,
and they prematurely filled it up in no time flat. Instead of a certain type of fine sand or gravel, they were bringing in big bony gravel, I remember. That was the talk, and that thing filled the capacity in no time flat.
But
Just 'cause
they, every so often, there's money that gets apportioned to it, so is it,
Okay.
is it closed, not closed, what's
I
happening?
was gonna say, because I know they haul it off the Synagro.
Correct.
Like I said, at one time, they treated it and they buried it right on their own property.
So what does that leave us at liability for if we're paying a portion of that?
Well, your sludge was in it at the time.
Right. So does that leave us liable, or is that their disposal?
You're a PRP, if there's anything related to that comes out. And I do have to look back, because we had a discussion about this 20 years ago, unfortunately.
I can't remember these 20
You've been digging in these numbers for a long time.
But I remember discussing it because I was like, well, you had your own plant for a long time, you only connected to them at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, was the sludge landfill open at that point or not?
Yeah, that's the question.
I can't remember, that was a question that I.
Was that
had.
totally on them, or was our plant in operation at that time?
Right.
If our plant was in operation
Yeah.
when
They
they
were
were
not
doing the
responsible for
landfill,
the
then we're
landfill,
not,
Correct, you wouldn't be.
right.
So I have a binder like this big of the stuff from the prior 10 years, and I'll have to go back and look at that to see how we handled sludge in the past.
So what are we looking at for a timeline for?
Now that I
Yeah.
have stuff,
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that a couple of months that I can kind of get through the back and forth, so that I
Okay.
can come up with
Who are you in contact with over there?
They have Abrams Group, or Better Gov, they call themselves Better Gov. It's a couple of gentlemen that do a lot of rate setting in Massachusetts. I've dealt with them on different issues over
Oh,
the
it's,
years.
so they have a consultant deal?
Yes, they have a consultant. Their treasurer kicked out a lot of the data, and he was involved in the email chain for a bit, but I've been dealing solely with the Abrams Group for the last, near term. They were kind of involved in sending this initially, but then there was a lot of silence. Some of that on my part. We had COVID run through my house, and that was not helpful.
If I'm not mistaken, their treasurer is a CPA over there, so I'm quite sure he's pretty good at cracking the numbers, you know?
But I guess what I'm worried about is to make sure they're interpreting the IMA appropriately, because none of them had anything to do with it getting set up in its, complicated form that it is.
Yeah, we don't,
And I'm sure their accountant,
I say he's,
although he may be good with numbers and understand them,
yeah,
if the
exactly.
wastewater guys are saying, oh yeah, the radio reads are part of the treatment plant.
so, yeah.
He doesn't know
He
that.
Yeah.
doesn't
Well,
know
and
the
they've gone
language.
through a bunch of people on
Yeah.
that side, so, they don't know.
He might be great at income taxes, but.
So some of these numbers, they've only filled in on a couple of years.
Well,
Like
on the
2015.
debt service?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, on the really small one.
Yeah, that's their debt schedule.
Oh, okay, that's their
Yeah.
debt schedule, okay.
Right, so the ones that they didn't finish, that's, like the three down the bottom, probably they did that project in FY15, so.
Right,
Or, no, I think it's the other way. I think they're in 19, 20, 21. Because this schedule only goes to 18.
Right.
okay. So we're at least moving now, so if there's any questions we can answer.
So, on things like, I'm trying to make sure that you feel part of the process to the extent you want to be part of the process, you know what I'm saying? Because I could, kind of do the back and forth and kind of, all right, this is where we are, and they're okay with this. But I don't want to do that if you want to know how I got there, and.
I'd like to understand where
Okay.
you got to there, just,
So I'm seeing that as, what I'll do is I will get questions answered, and I'll come up with an opinion, and then come here before I give that opinion to them. So we can have a discussion about it, rather than kind of have that negotiation. I'll say, this is what I feel is a fair place to be, given a fairly high-level look at this stuff. And then we can have a discussion about what I saw and that kind of stuff, and then get that to them, where it could still be subject to, well, we don't agree with that, or this or that. And I think that's that part of the discussion, now that I'm talking out loud, would help with the idea of, all right, what does Dudley get? Because this didn't happen for 10 years.
Right.
You know, what do you forgive, or what gets forgiven as a part of that? Because if they're asking you to pay a bill, essentially that might have been 10 years ago, all right, that's kind of a tough thing to do,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Or if they owed us for 10 years,
Right,
do we get that money with interest?
right. So, all right, we'll
This,
do that
uh,
as the process.
on this one, the new facility summary,
Yep,
is that a charge to us?
so that's their bond when they did the big upgrade,
They created the plan.
and so that's that.
That started, looks like in 2015.
So that's the money that's on the debt exclusion. So the payment that comes from the town directly, that goes towards that.
Okay.
But in the aggregate, I remember when they did this, they actually did not put the project out that they wanted to because they couldn't afford the whole project. So they'd said, all right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a big project, but we're gonna do a lot of little ones afterwards. And I look at this and I go, there's a lot of little ones and they're pretty hefty. I'm surprised. And that's one of the things I wanna kind of get a better handle on, because all these treatment plant projects add up to a lot of money in new replacement facilities that kind of tip this thing a little bit. And
Is those costs on us or the town?
well, they're looking at it in the aggregate right
The
now.
percentage, yeah.
They're just saying, when I add up everything that Dudley owes and I add up everything that Dudley pays, Dudley as a entity. So that's
But the-
sewer commission and debt service.
Debt service, yeah.
This is the net that it's changed. So that's how they're presenting it, and I assume that that's how we want to look at this at this point. Because there's a huge amount of gray in this sheet here. It's an enormous amount of gray, because they'll go, well, that pump was okay, but we replaced it, so is it a replacement, but it's new now, and it's got more capacity, so, and there's a ton of gray, so a lot of the stuff that's on this page could fall into either category. They just, because the way they did the projects and they're individual, they're not like this big upgrade. There are a lot of little things that kind of go, well, they're this type of facility, they're not this type, and so where it falls on this table can change based on
You're
that.
gonna fix their thinking.
Well, to the extent that I'm able to. And that's something else to have a discussion, because the stuff that's up here, you pay based on the percentage at the top of the page, which luckily you have a lot that are around 17. The stuff down here is always 17%.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a way to determine if they did these projects and there was grants involved?
So they presumably, we have to, again, this is how far do you dig into this
Right,
stuff?
yeah.
You know,
It's just that came across my mind.
yep, I would believe that this is only actual expenditures, and they have provided me some of the details of their budget. I don't know how much they have on the debt service side, whether, it's this summary that they put together or it's something different. But I will be looking at that. Because there were a couple of numbers that I was like, that's a lot of money to come out of, when I was looking across here, that's a lot of money just to absorb in 1 year.
So I guess the other question, at least in my mind, back, in this time period, the line from Oxford was added.
Correct.
That won't affect any of this, or will,
Well, so their
What
flow
does
is
that-
going to
their
be on the
flow will
Webster
change.
side.
Yeah,
So you're gonna pay for your percentage, and I don't know how their IMA is structured, or
Yep.
if it's just they're counting water meters and they're billing them that way, but the way that they collect the other revenue is up to them. So if Oxford's paying them whatever basis that is, that's revenue on their side. So we're paying based on exact costs, so our exact costs and exact flows, so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they were
That-
overpaid by
that doesn't-
Oxford or underpaid
that-
by Oxford, that's for them to manage.
that's
That's why this is set up this
that's
way, so
outside of this.
you don't have to worry about those aspects. I keep thinking that went through in my head. I'm like, well, there's new revenue, but there's new flow, and that all works itself out.
It's private deal.
Chairman, just a thought, yeah, now you quoted us a price for this, get this all done, if you feel that, you know, you're,
Well, we'll see.
yeah, if
Again, there's
if it's
been,
taking longer, just come back to us.
Yep.
You know, it's, I don't know how far they're gonna push back. You know, it's-
that's what we have to see. I mean, again, I'm, the Abrams Group is their accountants, you know.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, you know, you know, the guy that did this before, Steve Alcott, when we first did this stuff, he had a little bit of engineering background, and he was extremely reasonable. He was just like, you know this stuff, and it makes sense what you're saying, so, you know, we're gonna go with it. I don't know where they're at. I don't see that I'm gonna make enormous changes to this. You know,
Okay.
the principle is being enacted, it's just a matter of, you know, does the logic from, that was developed, you know, 10 years ago, does that still, what is it, 2004? So, yeah, almost 18 years ago.
Yeah.
Does that
So,
logic
110, yeah.
still work throughout? And, because sometimes you even need to change the logic because of some factor that's changed. And that's something I want to be thinking of while I'm looking at this. Just so, again, it's fair to you and them. That's how I operate this.
Okay, I guess another question, that I'll throw it out there, and I'm not sure this is even you're the right person to ask, or.
I'm willing to answer anything, I'm
We'll
just
throw
not always
it out there
right.
as a point of discussion anyways. How is what's the potential of the big four-letter elephant affecting any of this PFAS?
Oh, interesting.
I'm hearing little bits, I get little bits of
Yeah.
news articles, and it's in the sewage. Is that going to?
And so I can tell you from what I'm experiencing in the town I work for, we haul our sludge to get composted in Maine. And Maine has just instituted a $10 per ton tax.
I saw that.
And we haul quite a few tons, and so ours is $130 a ton, now it's gonna be $140 a ton. And we tested our sludge, we have a PFAS issue, but with one of our 3 water sources, we just shut it down because the other 2 can supply enough, and we're having a task force, which I have to start going, and all that stuff you talk about. I'm like, all right, I've heard all this stuff before, but we have to decide what we're gonna do with it. So our PFAS isn't that high. We tested the sludge, we were like 30 parts per trillion or something, so we were just over the mass standard.
That's the drinking water standard,
Correct.
so we're not drinking the sludge.
Correct. No, I realize that, but that's
going-
the number that we
but
have to go
those-
with.
You got people that are,
I mean, we in Massachusetts, they did a lot of testing in the rivers, upstream and downstream of treatment plants. I don't know if they did any down here, but they actually did upstream and downstream of my plant, and we weren't changing it in the river at all. Pretty high dilution ratio. There's not much in our water supply. Our water supply runs around 10.
So what do they use for a
But
test?
the river was 70. So it's like, yeah.
That's the EPA's level. But what did you use for a test to test your sludge? Because they don't actually have it.
No, they do not. I forget, I think we sent it out to somebody in Maine that did do it. It was the same price. I said, I want to
Just to get an
understand
idea,
this,
yeah. Get a feel.
because
for
I
where
know
you
that
are,
it's
but-
part of the new permit, we're gonna have to test it
again, I
anyway.
didn't know that has any effect with these numbers, but will
No,
it?
I believe that there's gonna be some fallout from all of that.
At some point there will be, so just to give you a little background based on permits and stuff that I saw from out. They can't test for the PFAS until there's an approved method. I mean, you can test, but it's not valid.
Yeah.
Until it's an approved method for it. And once they approve a method, you have 6 months before you take your first sample, because you need a full.
But then they don't even know what the standard's gonna
And-
be.
Right, they don't, and it's report only right now, so that'll be for an entire permit period, which is typically 5 years, so you got a 5-year permit. So it'll be 5 years from now that they'll be analyzing that data before they come out with a limit, so.
But it doesn't mean that the sources that are taking it are gonna be happy about taking it,
Exactly.
anything.
that's where it might get a little more sketchy, because then it's like, all right, well, now the sources that are taking it.
Synagro may say.
Right, and, you know, I've already had conversations with Synagro, because to break down the PFAS, you gotta hit 1,000 degrees C. And Synagro only incinerates to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a big difference. So they're not destroying the PFAS, so you're concentrating it, and it's accumulating whatever they're doing with it after they incinerate. So their incineration
Get
ash.
landfilled as ash.
Right, so your incinerator ash is gonna be more concentrated PFAS, so it will be an issue at some point.
Can't get rid of it.
But,
Oh, yeah, well, after we're done with someone who's concerned about PFAS, use of PFAS.
but it'll be 5 to 10 years down the road when we finally figure out how much this is gonna cost.
Well, I know mine's going up by $10.
Okay,
But the
And
hazardous
it's just,
waste law say
it's not even because there's PFAS in my sludge, it's just because they want to collect money so that they can deal with any PFAS problem.
It's to start getting the piggy bank up to deal with it when they
Yeah,
actually find
yeah,
out what
right,
the problem
yeah.
is, even though that's not gonna be.
just so that,
Be prepared.
But it's not the hazardous waste law, it says it's yours forever.
Yeah, it's the cradle to grave,
They can trace back to anybody that's dumped it.
and unfortunately, my thought was always you incinerate, because now you break it down, it's gone, that breaks the cradle to grave chain.
I'm surprised that, I was unaware that it's 1,000 C.
Yeah.
Because I would think that it's fairly organic, you'd think it would come apart pretty easy, especially with it being that soluble. You'd think that soluble chemical like that would come apart, but.
Well, it's funny because it's partially soluble, but partially not. So one part of the chain wants to be out of the water, one part wants to be in it. So it kind of floats on the surface, but it's because one part's trying to stay out. But anyway.
okay,
So when you break that cradle to grave, but now that it's still in the ash, it's still a compound. You haven't got rid of it, so.
But the thing that I was not surprised with, but it was interesting that it didn't concentrate the sludge.
Right.
So, what essentially is coming into our
Goes
plant
out, yeah.
is going out, so it's not like building up. And so if you don't have much in your water source, you shouldn't have much in your sludge.
okay.
Paul, do you need us to contact Webster for anything? or-
Nope.
Okay.
You just got a whole binder full of stuff.
So you're,
Okay.
okay, so you've
We
got your
appreciate the
homework.
update.
Yep.
Okay,
And so my next act will be to, over the next couple of months, get through all this, get my questions, come back with my view of this, explain that to you guys, then we'll present it to them.
okay,
And I will communicate that with them to say, this is what we're undertaking relative to this. They haven't finished 21 yet either, so, and I don't have 20 either, I think. They're still working on putting it in the format so that I can see it.
Yeah, because they said they want to move forward with doing it annually now.
Good,
With the-
Good.
With the new superintendent that's over there, so.
until they get a different
You still gotta get
superintendent.
us up.
well, if we could at least get to even biannual, great, but waiting every 10 years, it just creates this,
Well,
it creates this,
But it's a lot easier to go through if you just do it 1 year.
yeah,
That'd be 1/10 the size.
yeah. Okay,
all right.
cool.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
PFAS litigation,
Gonna come out with this.
Did you all see the email that I sent to you?
yes,
So, the attorney that was representing us in the PFAS litigation
right?
has sent information to our town
Skolnick
council.
and
Napoli.
Napoli,
yeah.
yeah.
They sent information to town council to review. Town council has reviewed it, but they want to be sure, they would like you to review sections 183 to 191 to make sure that that information is correct.
Is town council KP1?
Yes,
Did they disclose that they partnered with Napoleon on this lawsuit? So that it's,
Yeah,
they're part of the team now that's working on it. So I just question if that's ethically correct to have
Yes.
KP Law reviewing the documents
Their own
from Napoli with a partner with.
Right, so, I'm just reading through the email. Yeah, I know we got notified about it back, that they were, but the way that she words it, our town council, is that the person assigned to it has been communicating with the outside law firm, like, that person isn't associated with it. I don't know if that, I know,
They may
it's
not
that
be
gray.
associated, but it's their law firm,
Right.
they're associated by association.
Right,
That-
so, I don't know,
Just, I
That's
just wanna
all.
make sure that we're
Okay,
on the up and up there.
so we need to review that section.
and it needs to be back to town council by Friday morning. So that's why I put it on the agenda. So, it's basically, do you want me to read what it's saying?
Sure.
Is it long?
Not if I read fast.
Okay.
They're just, the Dudley Fire Department, which was located at 128 West Main Street. It furnishes the citizens of the town with a comprehensive and responsible delivery system of fire protection, fire suppression, and rescue in order to provide life, safety, and the protection of property. For decades, it's used its buildings and surrounding areas to train firefighters and fire brigades on firefighting equipment and techniques. This type of training regularly includes the use of AFFF as an extinguishing agent for Class B fires.
AFFF foam, yeah.
On information and belief, defendants, we'll just go AAA foam, component products were stored, used, and discharged at the town for years as part of the training exercise hosted in the instructions, warning labels, and material safety data sheets were provided with the
AFFF.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go, the stuff,
Yeah.
by the defendants, did not reasonably nor adequately describe the health and environmental hazards of the stuff which defendants knew or should have known. On information and belief, plaintiff's contamination, it is a direct and proximate result of mandatory fire protection, firefighting exercises, fire training, operations, response activities at the Dudley Fire Department that used AFFF, resulting in the migration of PFAS into plaintiff's water supplies. The Dudley Fire Department is located just at 0.4 miles from the Dudley water system. The town's water system includes 3 groundwater supplies and pumping stations, 2 water storage tanks, and 35 miles of water main. During 2020, the town's water department supplied approximately 196 million gallons of water with a daily average of approximately 536,000 gallons. The following testing was conducted at the town's water supply in 2020 and 2021, and the results show elevated levels of combined PFAS-6. And then it just lists, so that you can see, the places, the dates, and the results, which we gave them from our. So
We gave them, we provided them.
Provided those. And that high PFAS reading was under stress. like we
Okay,
said
yeah,
before.
well, yeah, we know but it was there.
So they're
Okay.
looking just to be sure that this looks good and that you agree with it and that they can follow.
Well-
Affidavit.
This is, yeah, and it's to, I don't want to misquote anything.
Sounds like an affidavit. You should essentially say, this is
Litigation
the
has
nature of the
asked,
problem here.
the litigation has asked for our approval to file the attached complaint on the town's behalf. They made a few edits, which the law firm has incorporated, but they do suggest that you review the paragraphs, which I just, let me just see, 8 to
Okay, so there's
13.
other stuff in there as well.
8 to 13, hold on, let me just get that. The town of Dudley's water system. This is, I can have George read because it's talking about the wells. Um, 8 to 16, 8 to 13.
Town of Dudley's water system includes, oh yeah, you just said that.
Yeah, it's basically just a review of what we went over, and just that the flame retardant firefighting foam has been sprayed in test exercises at the Dudley Fire Department, and it has grown into one of the town's biggest concerns.
So, is this just a statement they're looking for to add to it, or are they saying that this is where we're claiming our concern and this is where the contamination came from?
This is what they're filing on behalf of the town.
I mean, my concern is that you have multiple facilities that were fabric companies, that use Scotch Guard, that, it's not just the AFFF foam that we're concerned about, and I would tend to believe
This
that
is
it was
based
new.
on our first round of testing that we did.
Right.
But that's only, that's really more, that's where I would expect the contamination to come from
Parties.
the primary station.
Yeah.
But
So.
what about the other 2 stations? I would think that
That's-
I'm assuming this is one action of many that's
This
gonna
is
come down the
going
road over
against
time.
the AFFF defendants, the 3M company,
Okay,
Amerix
the-
Corporation, the
It's
Tyco
It's not so
Fire,
much the Dudley Fire, it's the.
It's piling on.
Chem
the
Guard.
AFFF folks.
it's the whole,
DuPont.
National
3M.
That's what I
Phone.
say, this is only a portion, because we
That's
have
correct.
multiple other parts.
Yes.
that-
Yes, this is just one complaint.
Sorry.
They're gonna, this is gonna add into a class action
Yeah.
dealing with AFFF foam.
I just don't want them to say that this is our only concern.
Only
No,
source.
and I'm sure this
Right.
isn't the only, yeah.
Okay.
And that would be, I guess that would be the only question.
Yep.
That would be the only question, is this isn't the only action that's gonna be coming out of this.
I can,
This is one small, this is peanuts being added into a trail mix that's gonna be,
and it's, yeah.
going after,
But weren't they trying to blame the
foam
fire
makers.
department there in some
No.
of that language?
Well, they're going
Well-
after the makers of everything.
Makers
Because I mean,
of the foam.
back, that was 40 years ago, they had no clue what they were
Right, that's what
using.
they
That's what they said.
Everybody used foam.
Everyone
Yeah.
used it.
And that's what
It's the
it-
3M that made the
Yeah,
stuff
but
is
they
what they
made
want,
it.
but they need to know where,
When I
the
was
point
on
is,
the-
reason for
When I
that.
was on the department, I remember moving those pails of foam around.
Yeah, 5-gallon pails.
Yeah, it says right in it
From
that
the
they were
back of the
unaware of any
I
health
remember
or-
From the back of the
They were
forestry
swimming
stall.
in
From the back of the forestry stall, I remember doing that in Oxford Center. You know, with my son in foam that was, you know, this deep, just running through it right on Main Street. I don't know if it was AFFF or if it was the other one, but. Okay, so that's one, all right. So that's gotta be pushed back to the, to town council.
Do you want
Right,
to,
right.
do you want a motion to do that? That you approve it?
Do we need a motion? No.
Do we?
Just-
That's up to you. Or I can just say it was a consensus of the board that to file this.
Yeah, just, yeah, move it, yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, the town council hasn't, although with your concern
I
noted,
will, I will put that in there just to be sure that there are other avenues being,
and his
Thank you.
concern about
Yeah.
the fact that they may be partners and
I
is
will.
that. But if town council doesn't see any issue with it, then, you know, that's what
I'm
we're
fine
paying
with it, I just
for.
want to make it disclosed that
Yeah, that it's, that, yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, anything further with that? Okay, 51 Airport Road, exception meter.
Just one more thing on that. So are we paying town council to review and do this stuff? Because we have an agreement with Napoli that there's no fee to us.
Yeah.
And if they're partners with them on this.
We haven't got a bill yet.
And then they're acting on our behalf.
Yeah, I
That-
will,
That's the part where I get worried about a conflict, that if they're billing us, but they're part of the company that agreed to do
then they
Right,
should,
yeah.
right.
to
Part
do
of the class
this at
action.
no fee until they take a
To take a settlement.
25% settlement.
Okay.
So,
I will find out, I'll
That's
email,
double dipping.
absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
I just want to make
That's
sure
what
that
it
we don't
is.
run
Okay.
into that issue, so.
Good catch.
Yeah, the way they explained it to us, because the same group, and they explained it that they were gonna rely on KP. It wasn't necessarily that KP's doing something and reviewing it for them. It's more KP knows the customers already, and all we have to do is provide releases to
Right, so
happily
you
to
want me to
allow
explain
them.
it?
You know, you can utilize KP as your contact for.
I know some-
Correct.
No,
It's
no
not that
problem.
they're-
Right, but
And
but
we did
KP
not
is
think,
our,
I didn't think we were gonna get billed from KP as part of this. It was all gonna be held, you know, and they
Right.
add up their time and they only get paid for their time.
right, but ours, we entered into the agreement before KP joined Napoli.
Okay.
So that's why I'm just concerned. We were utilizing and paying KP Law to come up with the terms of the agreement that we signed with Napoli,
And that
but now.
may
it's-
very well have been,
relationship
Must have
has
caused the
changed.
merger.
that may very well have caused them to jump in
So
as a
I'll find out for
consulting
sure.
partner.
And I'll get it in
Yeah, they're on
email
board.
form.
Just,
Okay, yeah,
like I said, I just want to cover the bases.
okay, exception meter, 51 Airport Road.
Okay, so, back when the house was built,
Which, okay,
which was roughly 2017?
is this the big
This is,
mansion?
this is the one on Airport Road, the large
Yeah,
house, yes.
okay,
So when it was built, an exception meter was put in for the irrigation. It was never inspected by anyone from the water department. There was never a call on it. So it's never been utilized, so to speak. We've never done readings on it. There's been a problem at that address that we've been, Brian has been working on because of the regular meter with some odd readings and things, so they're investigating it. And that's how Brian was able to get inside, and he found out that there was an exception meter there, but it had never been inspected, so it's never been activated in our system, never been getting readings. As of 3 years ago, you voted to do away with exception meters.
So if
So-
it wasn't approved,
Wasn't approved,
if it
then
hasn't been inspected and approved, then
it doesn't
they
exist.
missed their
As far as we're
And that's
concerned.
what Brian wanted to bring to you guys, because that was, it's your decision, not, that's a higher,
actually, it's not our decision, we made the policy, so.
well, that's, he just wanted,
Yeah,
he
just-
wanted it brought to you
Clarification.
because,
No, new exception meters.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
It has that.
But if it was never inspected and never put into the,
never
it's
inspected.
it's not in their billing, so they're not getting any exceptions off of it, then,
So it would be new at this point to
Okay.
accept it,
Okay.
and we don't accept it.
That's what, he just wanted to,
okay.
because there's.
Well, why was it never inspected? What was it, the superintendent doing back then,
I
you know?
I have no idea.
You were a water commissioner back then.
Well, we didn't go out, we didn't go out into the basements.
I was in the
don't
building
know.
department back then, so I can't tell you.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah, it didn't, it could have been something that the builder may have just put in.
Yeah.
But if it was just something that Brian found, this didn't come up because they were requesting to
No.
utilize it now, right?
No, but she then said, she came in and spoke to me afterwards and said, I had my irrigation gentleman, I asked for the extra meter for my irrigation, and I don't understand what happened. And I was like, I can't explain to you, she's like, that's why I had it put in, and I haven't been saving any money, so, and I told her it was
But
because
who
of the
put it
rule.
in, that's the question.
It had, I don't know, she's saying her irrigation, but I don't know. She could, and she did say she's not familiar with any of this, was her first time building and everything, so I don't know.
In other words, we don't have a receipt showing payment of a meter. What, 2 meters?
Nothing that I can find,
Yeah.
that, I'll just go with
I
that.
mean, if she purchased the meter for that particular purpose from our office.
From us, yeah, that's one thing, but she
that's-
could have bought
we-
it right
we-
from.
We can't even
sales.
prove that, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Unless she came in front of us with a canceled check from the town of Dudley for a second meter, then you have a situation.
At this point, yeah. Well, that
But-
was what year?
I think it was roughly
17.
2017.
Yeah, that house is about
That's
5 years old.
About
Yeah.
what I can, if you want, I can try to dig back even further.
There are other concerns with that property too, but I'm not gonna,
And we
discuss
are,
that.
they are, Brian is currently working on,
okay.
Table it.
Okay,
Right.
connection fees and fee structure.
hold on, let me find my other note. Oh, that was you. Sorry, that was you wanted.
Yeah, I asked if that
Okay,
be put on there.
that wasn't the other one,
For
sorry.
The purpose of, we need to look at connection fees and the structure of those, based on larger users coming in and the fact that we may have to pay for an entire PFAS treatment plant. We don't have the ability to negotiate TIFs or anything else with contractors that come in to build multi-million-dollar projects, whereas the town has that ability. I think that there's, one way around this is if we have large users coming in and they're gonna do a connection, we establish fees that represent upgrades and stuff that we did within the system itself, whether it's water main repairs, tank upgrades, treatment plant construction, and establish a fee that we think is reasonable to put on someone to connect, because they're connecting after the fact, and everybody else, all the customers, residential customers, are paying the bill on a $12.5 million plant that they got out of, and now they come in and tap into it and get to utilize it, but didn't have that expense on the plant. So, and if I was a contractor coming in and you told me I had a $250,000 connection fee because we need to fund large projects that came in, You know, I'd be like, all right, that's fine, but I'm just gonna go to the town for a TIF. And that's gonna be part of the TIF that I negotiate with the town. So that's just kind of a way that we can negotiate that and have them just go through the town and negotiate their TIF with that fee. It's just a different way to attack it, I think, but just something to consider, and, you know, I just wanted.
When you said larger users, do we have like a scale that, are you thinking that?
You're gonna have that, multi-unit one down at the end of Charlton Road.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how they're setting up the Charlton Road. I think they're putting in, that's gonna be a private water main going through there, right? They're gonna own their own. And are
That's when
those,
the,
They're gonna tie right off of Airport Road.
they're gonna come off
Oh, not
airport and go
Airport.
back on to
yeah, Dudley Hill.
Dudley Hill.
Dudley
Yeah.
Hill.
But that's not gonna be an accepted town road, right?
No.
So they're gonna own that, that's gonna be private, and is there fire protection coming off that?
Yes.
Those buildings are all gonna have fire protection, so.
Yeah, there'll be hydrants in there, there'll be sprinklers, I believe sprinklers in there. I think,
So there's a lot of fees within that structure that you could look at. You know, I just wanted to bring it up for a topic to discuss and get everyone to think about it. There's gonna be a lot more thought on it to make decisions.
On that particular project, they will build like the fee for the 8-inch water main, correct? The tie-in fees,
Yep.
and then they'll pay for each individual home
Right,
for the tie-in fees, correct?
correct.
Right, but
So the individual homes and the individual fire lines,
Yeah.
they should be charged for as well. But I'm just saying on larger projects
Yeah.
like that, you know, it's an opportunity for
Going
us as a
forward,
board
yeah.
to go forward
Yeah.
and say, we need to reconfigure this, and maybe the water main extension projects, you know, the permits and stuff, the fees that we add for that, maybe we need to revisit those.
Yeah, because we do have a, 6-inch water main extension, 8-inch water, but
And how old are they, and when's the
Yeah,
last
how
time
old are
we
they? Yeah,
adjusted
yeah,
those
last time.
fees?
Those
those
adjustments.
were made before we had to pay for this $12
Right,
million.
before you
right,
gotta-
right.
And-
They're
and
old.
The 12 and a half is only a portion of it. We've spent millions on water main upgrades on Mason Road and water tank rehabs, and, you know, there's a lot of things going on that,
And your 6 to 12 inch are all the same, it's $8,000 if it's 6 inches or 12 inches.
yeah, and that shouldn't be,
That
it
shouldn't
should be
be, no.
different.
Right.
You know, you have a break on that main to curb, or not curb, but main to gate, to the property line, and that's something that we have to
Should-
repair,
should we
and our
base it
expenses are
on-
higher.
Volume of usage?
Well, that's the other thing. There's a lot of things to factor, because volume of usage on a fire line is zero. You know, they
Right.
don't use it, so you need to get the upfront cost.
it could be a 2-inch line you're talking, it could be a the variety of types of size.
Okay.
There's a bunch of factors.
So we'll need some, we'll need some,
Well, when
we'll
we,
need to look at our fees, pull together our fee structure.
when
And
we
then-
get to the actual rates, we can adjust,
Mhm.
because the rates is based on usage. The high,
Right, so rates are based on usage, and that's one of the things that I did in my town when I looked at the meter sizes, you know. What sparked me to do it in my town was, I had someone come in and they're like, I want a 2-inch service line for a single family, ranch house, and I'm like, you do not need a 2-inch service for your house. The pressure's 100 PSI in front of your house, there's no way you need that volume. That's what I want. I'm like, no, you do not need that, and I'm not letting you put that in. They went and hired someone, came in, tapped it, a 2-inch main, a 2-inch going into their property line with a 2-inch curb. So then when I went, well, since you did that, okay, I'm requiring a meter pit, a backflow preventer, because if you're running a 2-inch line, you're obviously doing something.
Doing some, yeah, what are your
So
plans?
whatever you're tapping off to from there, I want to make sure it's not backfeeding into my system. So when it came up to, $10,000-$12,000 between a meter pit and a backflow preventer and all that stuff, they're like, oh, never mind, can we reduce that down to a 1-inch? But now I'm stuck with a 2-inch line that I'm responsible for in the road.
At the road.
Right, so, that's why I said, we're gonna readjust this, and I did it based on a percentage of available volume. So like, if you say a 6-inch is $500 and a 12-inch is twice the size at $1,000, you're incorrect, because you can
No,
fit
because
4
you have
6-inch pipes inside of 12.
Yeah.
So I did it based on available capacity of the pipe, so.
Is your fee structure online? Like, just to get for the next meeting?
Mine's completely different, because I work well with all the departments in my town. We're reasonable about, debt exclusions, we're reasonable about highway working together with us, and, we don't, I don't have an indirect cost with my town. So there's a huge expense that we pay that I don't because we work well together. You know, and instead of fighting each other and nickel and diming things, I don't have to factor things that we need to factor here.
Do you want me to send you these so you
Yeah,
can
if you
read?
can send me those and I'll
Yeah.
start working something on
So can you get us something on paper for next meeting? What do you think the fee should be?
it. I mean, we got a lot to consider and,
Right.
Yes.
you know, it's,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
a
a,
lot of it's factored through this and we gotta find ways to give our ratepayers that are, you know,
Paying for
little old Mary that's on fixed income and we're jacking rates up to crazy numbers. And, you know,
To
she's
subsidize
on
it.
fixed income, hanging up paper towels, trying to reuse them to save money.
oh, I spent 45 minutes in the parking lot of a local establishment, being beat up by a little old man who would only flush his toilet once a day because he wanted to get his bill to go down and it didn't go down. Well, yeah, because you're under the minimum use
Right.
and you're only paying the fixed cost anyways,
But
but then the fixed cost went up.
But all these people that are
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
projects that you need an 8-inch main going through your project and fire suppression lines,
Right,
their revenue, you know, it's a business for them. They're generating money, whereas the little old guy that beats you up in the parking lot, he's got
you
the
know,
bare minimum
you know the guy, I told you about him.
service line going in, and he's bearing the same cost that everybody else is on this treatment plant.
Right,
Like for sewer, we have commercial fees. For water, there's no,
delineation.
it's
Right.
all,
Okay, so
so I'll send this
But
to
on the
you.
rates, it's a little factored in there because we have a
Right.
tiered structure, so
Tiered, yeah.
that accounts for the people that are using a
But
lot
the
of
connection
water.
gives
connection
that-
fees and
that-
things like
connection
that.
But
fees.
connection fees are different.
Right.
And like I said, that's our way to
And I guess if we can
collect money
pull-
towards projects.
Pull together what the, what the industry, I don't know if MWAA or whatever the
Well, technically, one of the things, like connection fees.
waterworks.
When you adjust connection fees, the way that you're supposed to determine connection fees is based on your total assets. You know, you got 35 miles of pipe. What's the value of 35 miles of pipe? And how many connections do you have? And how much does all that equate to? And what's the fair fee to determine what the expense of that connection fee should be to account for all that cost? So we're adding a $12.5 million treatment plant and a whole bunch of upgrades that need to be factored into that because it increases the dollar amount of our value.
Right,
You know, I mean, the town might look at us as, oh, well, your budget's, $2 million or whatever. But when you look at it, we probably have the largest amount of assets in the entire town. There's 35 miles of water main, as we see with the water main projects. That's $70 million worth of assets just in the ground that you don't see.
Storage tanks,
On
pumps.
top of storage tanks, which are over $1 million, and,
Yeah.
booster pump stations. So asset-wise, we probably have the largest asset within the town. But our rates aren't what the tax rates are. We don't generate as much as tax revenue does.
Right.
So, it's just something that you need to factor in. And because they haven't changed in a long time, your connection fees or anything else, you're not factoring in a lot of assets that you're paying for.
okay.
What we're facing
So-
today, yeah.
We need to really dig into that. I guess, last, before we go too much farther, is it possible to restrict the agenda next month so that we're concentrating on something and we have to have a secondary meeting?
Well, you're
to
gonna
deal with
have
other
your
stuff.
public hearing.
Public hearing, yeah, right, the public hearing, talking about rates and this stuff and kind of, is that,
Yep.
when you add on 10 or 12 other items,
Yeah, nothing
it
gets done.
just, nothing gets done because we're just spinning.
But unfortunately, I think that,
And if we have to
I
have
know
a
you want to
second-
do that so you can focus. I think that the better answer may be, we might have to have a little
working-
more frequently meetings as
That-
opposed to
that-
once a month.
That's what I'm saying, if we have to schedule another meeting.
Brainstorming meetings.
Schedule
Yeah.
a second meeting each month.
Right, just so we can focus,
We
because,
can cancel a meeting if it's scheduled, if it's not needed.
but it's like
But we
policies.
may
I mean,
need to-
we keep adding policies,
Yeah,
but we haven't
we haven't done
accomplished
anything with-
anything on policies just because we haven't got to it.
Because
so.
we just, it keeps getting
Oh,
pushed
yeah.
off, and if we
Tonight,
add, I think we're gonna need to add another, I guess, can we, yeah, we can talk about that.
They have to be like a work meeting,
Can we, no, we
not
can.
a public meeting.
If
Well,
we
you
know.
could have you could have it a public meeting as
But
well.
it's just-
They're
just
all
for
public
work,
meetings,
Just
yeah.
for work.
But then we may need to have a second meeting scheduled, and then we can go from there to, like I said, if we don't need it, we can cancel it.
Tackle these up.
Well, do we want to schedule a meeting before the public meeting or not? Because we could hash this out all night long.
We'll be prepared.
You'd be prepared.
What do you mean, before the public hearing or
Yes.
before?
Before the public hearing.
Just a policy and procedure meeting?
That might be a good idea.
A meeting to go over policies and procedures and things
Right.
like that.
I meant to go over the budget, have an open meeting,
He's
but
talking about to factor in potentially doing connection fees as part of
Yes.
the rate hearing.
yeah.
I don't know.
That could be tough.
Yeah, I don't know I think the reason for having a public hearing is that the discussion is held
With the public.
with the
Well,
public
all right, let's
involved.
do it then, and we can always have another one after to
Right, we
finalize
can
it.
adjust
But,
the,
but I'm saying we may need to, at least for the short term, schedule a second meeting each month to talk about some of the stuff that we just keep passing over.
Research.
The bottom end of the agenda
Yeah.
ends up getting
Pushed off.
shuffled
Yeah.
every month so that we can start covering some of that and get.
and just to clarify, Tom,
And then
I
we-
think those are two completely separate issues, because your connection
Right.
fees have nothing
Yes.
to do with
Have
your
nothing to
rates
do with the rates.
and the existing
But
customers.
it just,
Yeah,
if
no, I
we can,
understand.
if we can concentrate on talking about the money stuff, and then we can talk about some of this other stuff at a different time. So, I mean, do we want it, well, we can talk at the end of the agenda.
Yeah.
End of the
Do we want
agenda.
to schedule another
We'll
meeting
talk
this
at the
month?
end of the agenda for
Okay.
that, get through the rest of the stuff and figure out what we're gonna do with it. Policies for shut-offs and non-repaired lines, I know that was
That's
something
in
that's
my
another new-
report, but a little circumstances changed. They did finally remove the obstructions that was causing the issue, finally. But still, we need a policy in place for people with customer leaks that, there's gonna be times when, 2 weeks is one thing, yeah, I got a contractor, we're ready to go, or a big storm comes in, we understand that. But when you're getting into 4 or 5 weeks or something like that, that's too much. So we need to have something that we can have some teeth.
So for anyone who isn't aware, they have had a customer who had a leak on their side, and it went on for a period of time, not being repaired. And that's pouring water right into the ground. I know I've been caught up in it, and I had the threat of shut off years ago. I had someone come in and repair my service. Evidently, there's nothing in writing as to what our policy is for dealing with that.
To be honest with you, I don't know that you really need a policy, that's just in standard practice, that you would shut them off if they don't. You don't,
After
you
what
don't
period of-
technically need it's actually part of the.
But how much time do you
connection.
give them to fix it?
You don't have to give them any time. You see a leak, shut it off, fix it, call us, let us know when you're
If you
done.
lose pressure, you're gonna have water go back in your
Right,
system.
it's
You're
a,
gonna contaminate the system.
it's a backflow issue. for one.
Oh,
It's
yes.
So-
unprotected.
Yeah, that'll suck
So if-
whatever is in the ground back in.
If the fire department has a huge fire and they jump on a hydrant and start blowing out water, and it causes a water main break somewhere, and you're flowing water as well, and they shut off their thing, but you got a water main break behind, you can siphon stuff back into the system, and now what do you do? It's an
Okay, I
issue.
get it.
So it's a, just because it's a risk, you have the right to shut them off. And
And it's an emergency, just like a branch coming through your roof or.
And what
or
I
anything
do,
else, you need to get it
know,
fixed.
If you have the need to, hey, it's an old couple or it's winter and whatever, and they don't have the ability to get someone to come in right then to dig it up, what I do is I run house to house above ground. We put in spool pieces for meters so that the customer that's feeding them some water, because when you run a line above ground, you can't, when the temperature's out this morning, you can't just leave that line. So we tell the person who didn't have water to just let the water run a little bit to keep the line from freezing. But those are just internal policies or practices that we would come up with. I mean, that's what I do in my town, because
And we do that too, except when you can't do it. This is one of those. You can't.
So I guess the threat comes, I mean, the
We can write a policy, that's fine, I'm just saying that by
Maybe
right.
something,
we
I
have
more
that
was hoping
ability.
for something to view it, so that the public gets a general idea that we are, there is a plan there, so don't feel relaxed too much that, we're gonna just let it go, but there is something there, so in case they're questioning something, or,
We have the right to shut them down.
yes.
But I'm glad to see that you're moving forward in that direction, because before I was on here, I can tell you that I fixed the line in Dudley that leaked for years, and the water department never shut them off and never did anything about it. And they knew about it, and I know they knew about it, because when I went to do it, Tim showed up at the job saying, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, there's a leak. They told me to come out and fix it, so I did. I said, they were handling all the communication with the town? And he says, well, no one called us, but you made the mistake of fixing the line directly across from the superintendent's house. And I said, I didn't make any mistake. If you guys knew about it, why was it leaking for several years? They just asked me to come fix it, but years. And they had a pond in their yard because of the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple questions that Brian had asked about this is, so if you can do immediate shut off, do you have to give them written notice? Do you just verbally?
I mean, you gotta let them know. I mean, obviously
Right,
you
but he
can't-
didn't know, he was just, what the legal, is there would you give them?
You
a
can
written-
talk to them, I mean,
Okay, so there's nothing.
written would be nice, just so you have a record of it,
Okay.
but,
And,
Usually notify the Board of Health as well.
correct, as soon as you shut water off,
Yeah,
you're
you
supposed to
gotta-
notify the
there's
Board of
some
Health.
things you-
that's easy.
For now, yeah.
But
We
just,
don't know anybody on the Board of Health.
Somebody's up for reelection this year, so.
Not
I mean,
me.
you gotta have some civility
Yeah,
dealing with
yeah.
them.
That's why we wanted just
You know what I mean?
something,
You gotta
something for viewing,
come in
and
and-
that, yeah, we are
say,
serious,
please.
like I said, that
Most-
eliminates the Board of Health issue if you went house to house and supplied them with water.
So
Yeah.
then his question about that was, since it's an ultrasonic meter, how do you account for what the other person's using?
Coming from one
As
hospital.
as a assistance to customers in my town,
Yeah.
like I said, I
We'll
take the
jump
meter
around,
out and I
take the
put a
meter
spool
out.
piece,
Yeah.
and they're getting the water for free.
Okay.
That's what we
They
commonly
get the
do.
water for free for,
Or
But,
if you
you
want,
know,
we
we're
can
not
give
gonna
them
let it
some
go
kind of
forever,
abatement
so-
Right,
after.
right, right.
for a
Well,
week
that's
or
what-
so while they're getting it
Yeah.
fixed.
That's what we do.
And then can you, where this has been going on for so long, can you estimate a loss of water or anything to them?
No.
No, but that's what I had said before as well. If you had a customer that's refusing to fix it and you don't want to shut them off or whatever, then, at that point, I would dig it up at the curb, put in a meter pit and say, all right, if you don't want to fix it, we're charging you, here's your meter. It's going on to your
Put
property.
a meter and a backflow on it.
Here's the bill for the day.
But George, you haven't had that many problems where
Exactly.
someone is belligerent and they won't fix
The,
it.
the person is unfortunately, what happens is that this was getting into the winter time frame of cold weather, and that contractors weren't, he got a contractor, he was trying to finish up what he had with
Yeah.
emergency digs.
Yeah.
We couldn't tie him in, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden, the trees were in the way, blah, blah, blah. And it got on and on and on and on. He finally got a new tree person, which now came in and did what it's supposed to. So
I mean-
they are making an effort.
I just can't see how the superintendent or the staff just can't communicate to the homeowner, listen, it's of utmost importance, it has to be taken
Yeah,
care of.
We've had letters,
Okay.
we've
Yeah.
had.
5 months.
Yeah, 5 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Me
But-
calling every 2 weeks.
Right, but
George
that,
talking.
as Mr. Brinkman brought up, that's part of Brian's issue is trying to come up with his unaccounted for. And if you're over 10%, it causes other issues with the state.
Right.
If you repeatedly exceed your 10%, now they start forcing you to implement water conservation efforts and stuff that you technically shouldn't have to do if you just don't let people leave leaks running forever.
So we need to fix those. So that's, you have that right to do.
So
We
that's
can-
by right you can do it, but we can write a
We
policy.
can write something up just to,
Just
to give-
something quick and
to give
easy,
you-
and
So we have.
so we have it.
okay. Policies, follow-up.
More policies.
Well, we have
Except-
another one added list.
Exception meters back then, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk,
Yeah,
after
we're
we,
never gonna hash it
well,
out.
well, actually, moratorium we can bypass. I still don't think we need to worry about it, it's just an ongoing, it's just a placeholder, I guess. Superintendent's report. I didn't see one from you this month.
It's in there.
It's in there.
Did I?
It just got done today.
So do mine too.
Oh,
So much going on, we just wanted to make sure we got it all in there. Okay, did you guys have a chance?
I didn't get it.
Okay.
I did, I got a few questions if you're not gonna go through it this
Okay,
time.
that's fine.
I'll let you, I'll only start with your questions, because that way they're like, if
Yeah,
I,
it's, if,
All right, so,
Bob and I already kind of talked a little bit about some of them.
well, the first one, which we didn't talk about, is the number 5, the bridge at Station 6.
Yep.
Is that the
Oh,
same
there.
culvert that
Yep.
we've done multiple times?
you had to rebuild that again?
The actual, one of the drain, 24-inch drain
I see you put rooted, but I'm assuming you mean rotted.
rotted,
Okay.
totally rotted out, and the water was, actually caused a sinkhole, and Brian almost lost his vehicle in it because it was coming up between, so we immediately took it out by diverting to the other pipe and ran a plastic in and redid it over, and it's good now.
But
But down the line,
So the comment I have is that we had discussed it with Ty and Bond about coming up with a real replacement
culvert, a
to
culvert.
finalize a true culvert and
Yep.
not just keep patching it like we do. Did
And-
we move
and
forward with that? I thought we
I-
told them to go forward with that.
I had a contractor kind of ready to go in there with us to do it, and all of a sudden he's putting a kibosh about
Right.
it because.
I thought that was all stopped at that point. We were supposed to be moving forward with Ty and
And all of a
Bond.
sudden we got all these architectural things and ideas and that, and it went absolutely nowhere. It ended up, I says, well, why don't we divert the driveway to behind Station 4?
Yeah, we went up
where
and
it's
had that
less of a thing,
conversation, right.
It's less of a wide area.
It's a shorter area,
Yeah.
it's a straight shot.
Well, now they're looking at it, and this is what I actually did for the capital, put a $600,000 plan in for a new culvert type setup because of all the engineering that would be going on involved in it.
So can we get something out to Ty and Bond and ask where we stand with that? Like I said, I think we said to move forward with it.
Right, we did.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I had to put some, we have
Yeah, I
curb
know, you
cuts
had
and
to.
everything.
We have to get into the station.
We have to get in the station, and by the time, and I'm not gonna be polite about this, because right now, I'm having some issues with Ty and Bond, but by the time it takes them to do anything and get anything in to do, I'm gonna be replacing the other pipe too, because that's in about almost the same shape as that other one. But at least now, it's not bubbling up, it's moving. I just don't want any big.
Why you got in situ form outlining? Can you just have them line that
Yeah,
little section?
that's, I wish I could.
Okay.
All right.
to send an email to Ty and Bond?
Yeah, the board is questioning what's going on with because we've talked about it, we had a plan.
Yep.
We were talking about it, meetings about it, Bob was in.
I thought we said move forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought we did too.
And I kept getting, and now we're talking about floodplains and this, and architect plans, and another,
In the meantime, it needs to be,
I'll send out the information.
okay.
That's-
you got another one, Bob?
Number 8, we already discussed, right?
Yep.
That was-
Yeah. The other one, and I'm
Number
gonna
10.
just get into it and give it to Bob, because I talked to him about it, I was pretty,
Number 7?
no, number 14 right now, I'm jumping to 14.
Okay, number 14, yes. Okay, you go ahead, and I've got more.
Okay, all right. Yep. Back before the winter hit, it was explained to Barbados on a meeting that no matter what happens, I want that pipe from the well to the new TIG reservoir. I want the actual pipe, everything rigged up, ready to go. No problems, this and that. And then we'll be ready for the actual unit to start up, which would be fine, except for the point is, we ended up with a problem recently, like I said, was the pressure reducer valve now turning into the temporary
The
disc.
rupture disc.
Rupture disc.
So this is one of the reasons I had an issue with this at the meeting, and I voted against it. You know, I know you guys voted to do it without the labor, so that they're eating some of the cost, but
So these people have been using, and Dankris actually got off their guy, and I was able to get parts for our Station 1 project to continue through it, and they paid the $3,000 added cost, which didn't matter, kept the project moving. These people continuously with EJ Prescott have a thing where they're getting money saved going through just EJ Prescott. So apparently, while they were doing other projects, they didn't do any of my words about, they did a little bit, dug a little bit, okay, fine. Then it was anticipated it was just a pressure reducer problem, getting parts and waiting on those parts. No, it wasn't. We got the pressure parts in. Now they're missing some elbows and flexible, some flanges for the actual piping work that should have been done months ago and never was done. Now we're waiting on all that stuff. somehow it just eluded him why, he didn't understand why we're missing those parts, but they are.
Well, if he doesn't understand it, it doesn't matter if we're, we should be in the realm of being able to penalize.
Well, this is, and that's what I said at the meeting, when you guys all voted to move forward with that. I said, I don't think it's necessary, and I asked Jeff specifically, is that the only thing that's holding up the
Yeah,
completion timeline and that? Because if we
Yes.
agree to pay a change order in that amount, and now we're still waiting for other parts, I'm gonna be awful upset that we didn't need to do that change order. Because it was unnecessary.
So
now.
the PRV come in?
The pressure the
pressure relief.
The rupture disc came in, but they're missing parts that
Oh,
project should
okay,
have been done
the
weeks
burst
ago.
disc.
Yeah,
Okay, so we still don't have the PRV.
no, we got the PRV, we don't have the other parts from the other part of the project to connect to the pipe.
But, so is the pressure relief valve in, or is it just the rupture discs that are in?
No, the rupture disc is in, ready to
Well, the
go.
PRV is
Anything
not.
to do
though.
with pressure is in.
No, but the
Oh, PRV,
rupture
no,
disc
no,
is,
no.
yeah,
No,
okay.
but the pressure, the rupture discs are in, so we could have still started up the unit if it was connected. But it's not connected in the ground.
But that was the whole reason that they wanted a change order, is because that's the only thing that was holding it up. And I know that wasn't the truth, because I was at the meeting that George is referring to, and they were talking about valves and fittings, and they're like, we can't get them, there's such a supply chain issue. I said, hang on. And I made a phone call while we were sitting in the meeting. I
Yeah,
said,
well,
I need this, this, and this. Yeah, I can get it for you today. I can get them. You want them?
Yeah,
We're not paying your prices. I said, all right, we'll buy them. You put them in, and then whatever, because he's like, we get it much cheaper.
Yeah, I
I'm
was
like,
in that meeting.
yeah, so, and he said, no, we're not. I said, well, then we'll buy them and have you install them, and then you replace them, and we'll put them in stock. And they disagreed with that as well. So they had every opportunity to move forward with that, and we
Initiate
took out
penalties.
all their roadblocks, and they
Initiate
refused to
penalties.
do it. So, in my opinion, you paid $2,000 or whatever, $1,800, whatever it came up to, for nothing. That was a waste of money, because there's other things that are holding it up.
$2,000.
And I specifically asked the engineer at that meeting, is that the only thing, and if the deadline is not met when we put in the rupture discs, I want to collect stipulated penalties, because that is not the reason, and we had to pay a change order, so, and that's the only reason I didn't fight you guys too much on it, because now we've endured pains and penalties.
Right.
We
Endured cost, yes.
we endured costs, and it was an injury to us, so now we can go after them for the stipulated penalties, so that's,
I believe we
That's my
have a
opinion.
meeting on Monday with Ty and Bond and and Barbados. I'm not sure it's etched in stone
Yeah,
yet.
there's a bunch of meetings for next week.
Yeah, I got on the phone and I let loose on everybody on Ty and Bond. Not only has this been dropped, the ball was dropped big time on this, but you people were told by us the necessity of that tank being put in production as soon as possible. Okay, and this is no excuse. Because now the part is in that we were originally waiting for, and something that should have been done months ago was left, and they did another project. But I keep getting the crap, excuse me,
Bad
the
pictures.
crap from the engineer, well, it's in the contract.
That must have been when
I
I
don't
filmed.
care about that. I got a station that needs to get running. I've got summer months coming up. I've got fire protection I'm worried about. You know, this isn't a game here.
Okay, I've got close to 30 pictures. I stopped last Thursday on my way home from work. Took some pictures, got covered up above my ankles in muck, up as I stepped off the
Did you
grass.
take a picture of that?
Oh, I took pictures of my shoes, yes.
Okay.
It has been an eyesore, I guess would be an appropriate word to use on camera.
An eyesore.
It's been an absolute eyesore.
It's a disgrace.
And it's been that way, I
the
want to say,
system.
since pretty damn near the first of the year.
And remember, he
And
was
it's
told about that.
And
We were told about
we've gone round and round about this.
So they
I'm
showed
done.
up the other day to work, and what they do?
One day.
They moved what I saw, the gate was closed and they moved the
I saw
one
the
truck
trucks
out.
there, and
That's all I saw that got
they
moved.
were all at Papagenos in Webster later.
Yep, that's about it.
So,
No part.
you know, as far as I'm, you know, and I asked the question of someone else, what do we need to do to exclude them from any future? This is what I was asking about the other day.
that's just
That's that pit.
personal
with the-
experience.
with
That's,
the- With the, that's right next to the pump.
you
it's
can
a pit with a
bypass the whole, you call
pallet on
references,
top with a boulder
you're your
on
own
top of it.
reference at that point, so.
They're saying they can't get material as needed?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the
that was,
bottom
you were at that meeting,
A and
Scott.
B items.
Yeah.
Like I
Don't
said,
hit the
I
line.
called and I found
And
two
they
different
had it,
places.
they had it, yeah.
I could have got them the
Yeah,
parts
off the
that
shelf.
day.
But they didn't want to pay that price.
They didn't want to pay that
Get a
price.
discount.
They wanted, because they have a preferred, they must have a preferred deal with some
Yeah, but
supplier.
you never
Scott,
put
they
your
didn't
eggs all
use
in one
that
basket with one wholesale
$18.
house.
But the problem is that I gave them
But
the
it's open.
option
Yeah,
that
yeah.
still would have allowed
I'll
them to
get it,
pay their
I'll get
price.
it, yeah.
I'll give it to you, just replace it when you
Yeah,
get yours in.
So, yeah, I guess it's time to play some hardball, I guess. And, you know.
But
if-
what's
if
their deadline
penalties-
for,
February 7th. Passed.
so we've passed the
Yeah, well, it
deadline
was-
that they
it
were
was
supposed to
February,
have
yeah.
it online.
17, I thought it said 17, I can't remember the exact.
We signed there was an exception in order to spend more money to get it done temporarily.
The change order, yeah.
A change order, and they haven't done anything with it.
And like I said, I pointed out at that meeting that you guys agreed to pay the change order,
Right?
that I'm against it, and if it is done. I
Okay,
wanna
we
make
got
sure
your I
that's-
told you so.
That's clear.
Yeah,
No,
you're
no,
dealing
I'm
with-
just
I
saying-
wasn't here.
I'm just saying that I want on record that the engineer
Yeah, I know-
said that
I
that
know
was the
where
only
you
thing
were.
holding it up.
Yeah.
I would have been on your side.
And
No,
that we
but
made it,
I
and that we made it clear that we wanted to go after stipulated penalties if
absolutely.
if we agreed to the change order and it was not.
Well, it's been a month
Set up with
and
the penalty,
nothing.
that's all.
It's
That's my opinion.
been a month and nothing's changed.
Okay.
So,
Do we know what we can hit them with?
well, it's all in the.
I forget what is it,
it's all in the
what it is per
contract.
day in
We're
the
probably gonna have
contract.
to get the engineer in here and have a discussion.
Yeah,
or
it's
an
actually
executive-
pretty rare to
executive.
get, you have to show actual costs.
But that's what I mean, and I asked the engineer, if we sign this change, because we had a change order because there's a pressure relief valve on the vessel that they couldn't get. So we agreed to let them put on a rupture disc at an additional cost, so we could go online now.
Yeah.
So we put the rupture disc on, but we still can't go online because they don't have other parts.
They can't find some piping parts that they
So they,
supposedly
and I
have.
specifically asked the engineer, that is the only thing that's holding them up from meeting the deadline.
In the meantime, this is just an
And they
open,
said yes.
an open
So
eyesore.
it's a separate issue. They're completely separate. You change ordered them to put in a rupture disc. They put the rupture disc in, so they're due the money, regardless of whether, it's a whole separate issue that they haven't met substantial completion.
But we endured that cost for the change order
In order to get online.
to get online.
Right, right,
So
but-
that's our that's where we've suffered pains, because we didn't need to pay that because they don't have the other parts complete. We could have waited for the
Yeah,
The right.
PRV if they're still waiting on
Okay.
other parts.
so, superintendent's report, yeah, that was, when I saw that on the so good, because that's the open for my
Yeah.
pictures, but we won't be dealing with them again.
They had months to
And
order that
what-
material and have it in stock.
Whatever
have
we need to
availability.
do, whatever we need to do
They have no interest in doing the job.
to
That's the bottom
escalate
line.
this thing and get it
They don't want
done.
to be there.
Right. But that was my other point that I brought up at the meeting. I want to see their sales slip when they place the order.
Yeah.
We all know there's supply chain issues. You know, you knew you won the contract.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
knew what was needed.
Why didn't you? yeah.
Order the parts went
Yeah.
right up front, so they come in on time.
So, the clay pipe issue up at the tank,
Yeah.
did you find anything with that?
I don't know if you were aware of this, but we did.
Well, I know they went up there to dig one day.
Okay, we did a test fit, and we came across a clay sewer pipe, 6 inch.
Well, I'm
Right
sa-
next to the,
I'm saying there's four of them.
No. I'm just.
you know what I'm saying, it's a perimeter drain around that thing, and it was backed up,
Could be
because
a
that
pit.
pipe was backed up.
Could be a pit in the ground somewhere we don't know about.
Well, I'm thinking that, actually, Bobby Mason and I have been talking about, we're gonna have a meeting up there with the whole group, and we're gonna do an exploratory with that pipe.
Yeah.
We'll have to use a little bit of the jetter and the cammering
See if it goes.
with the,
Yep.
with the thing to
Okay.
go, see how far we can get with this, where this goes. I'm even thinking it might be some dry wells with stone.
That's what
and
we
then
said.
Forked off in
You know,
various,
you know who says he thinks
Yeah.
there's 4 dry wells out in the field
yeah.
But
coming out, you know?
you got to be careful, because if that's a perimeter drain around the tank,
Yeah.
and it's a concrete tank, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, people think that you're not going to float a concrete tank, but you can float a tank if it's a buried tank. So often you'll put a drain around, and typically you'll have monitoring wells
But
to
it-
see if the water table is up.
100 years ago, that drain had to terminate somewhere
Right,
to run off.
right, to run it off. But that's what I'm saying, is if that's a perimeter drain and you stop it,
Yeah, what?
now you
hydraulic
have the
pressure.
ability to hydraulically lift the tank.
Hey,
So-
it's of concern.
That's why we want to try to explore it and clean it a little bit, just like we would a sewer pipe.
Yeah.
Try to let the camera go out.
Put a
and see if we
camera
can
in it,
come up
see if
with you know, with the receiver, see if we can see where this thing.
See if it
I think
continues.
Kenny Bates might be right. It may be forked off in sections, and that's what it is. But
Right.
it's clean now. I mean, it's all drained out now,
Yeah.
of course, but we've got to clean it up. And so when they're doing the other big projects up there, we're going to
You're
coincide.
gonna have to be aware of it.
Yeah, we need to at least know what we're kind of dealing with up there.
And I just wanted to comment on 16. As I got home from work the other day and I had a leaflet on my door. A phone call would have worked.
Well, I don't think they knew
I got
exactly it was your
leaflet,
house.
yeah,
Otherwise, I would have terminated that.
Oh, yeah. No, okay, yeah, all right. So, yeah, and so folks know, if anybody who happens to watch this, we're talking about, we've been replacing meters on a regular basis. And I guess I'm on the next round. I got a call from my stepmother. She got a leaflet and she wanted to make sure it was for real. I said, yeah, it's for real, and she said she was gonna call and schedule.
But you have not.
I know, because I knew I could come in. The day after Easter, I have a day off. I wanna do it that day.
So I had one more question on 15. You've got the PRV vault that's being constructed and should be here for installation.
She's being constructed now.
In
We're
April,
looking at
right.
April.
But why are we having the electrical work to the vault to be done by LaFleur?
That it's our electrician that's putting the drop in through the national grid. They're not doing it.
Are you sure that wasn't?
Ross is not doing it. It's just Ross is gonna go in there, do the
Well,
valve.
Ross is installing the
Yeah.
vault, but I thought when the discussions on that was part of Halleck's change order for
No,
that.
no, there was no change order on that. That was done through us to have just a drop put in for lights, receptacle, and maybe some pump setup.
I
if we had to.
would double check your change order, just because if you're doing it outside of that change order, if it was included in the change order, it's part of the
Yeah, that would-
Well,
SRF.
no, it's not, and it was, we had a meeting on it today that you were in, remember, there was already.
Well, there was discussion about
Yeah, it
calling
was
National
already,
Grid and getting
it
the
was
drop
my
in.
responsibility to do the drop because we were gonna just handle that by locally with our electrician. So that it was not even a big deal for me, it was just,
I just,
yeah.
Just wait, if
I
it's-
know it's not a big deal, I just wanted to
But
point out that
why
if if
would we
it's-
pay for it twice?
if it's part of a change order and it's in the contract, it should be
they
done
carry
through
it.
Halleck.
Yeah.
And it's also, if we're paying for it and having LaFleur come in, it's not part of the SRF, so it comes out of your operating budget as opposed to the SRF loan, which also contains 19.9% principal forgiveness. So essentially, we get a 19% discount on that work if we do it through the project as opposed to doing it on our own through the budget.
Yeah, we weren't, it was, like I said, the cost of it for what we do through SRS is gonna be a lot more SRF anyway, because then they're gonna
Well, not if
have.
it's already part of the change order, that's what I'm saying. If
Well,
it's already
I-
included in the change order and we're paying
We
for it
hadn't
through that.
put it on the change order, and if they haven't put on a change order, we'll find out. But it was not brought up that way, and it
Well,
wasn't.
just double check the
Yeah,
change
I'll
order
check
and
it.
what
I'll
was
check
in that
the,
contract.
Yeah. We'll just make sure.
I just don't wanna be paying for things twice and paying for it at full rate when we're paying for it at a discount as well, so. That's all I have.
Okay.
Sewer, any questions on water?
No.
Sewer is pretty straightforward, I&I's going on. They're just getting everything just about done now. They've been doing some lateral work right now, manhole repairs, things like that, just to start finishing up the whole project. So we think we hit the big infiltration load when we were down the Alton Drive area on the change order one. So we're hoping we'll know by the next rainstorm how we did.
Do you know how many additional linear feet you got done outside of the original contract?
I can't, you know what, I think we discussed it, but I can't remember what what it was.
Okay. Public, no public comments. Board comments, anybody have anything? Bob?
I'm good.
No,
Bob?
no, you want to talk about Jay Billings.
Oh, yes, Jay Billings. So,
You already passed.
he sent the letter.
Yep.
And that was based on adding the Webster's aquifer protection into
Mhm.
ours. I think that we should ask Jay if he can give us a proposal to, I'm not sure how involved we want to get, but quickly identify potential future sources.
Excuse me, wasn't that part of that, what Bill had come up with, actually he expanded it a little bit on that?
No.
No,
Okay, I thought,
The only
he said there was some of that was
The only expand was because it covers part of the Bigelow Road Aquifer Protection District that stretches into Dudley.
well, I think the only thing that we added was that we wanted to include that little square that they left out over by the mill
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
for whatever stupid reason. It wasn't.
Yeah, and then-
it wasn't per the aquifer. It was per somebody wanted to open something up for.
And then the
whatever.
section up at the very top of the map, that wasn't on it originally either. That's the Bigelow Road Aquifer Protection District for Webster,
Right.
adding
So
it to ours.
add it to our protection district,
Right.
but.
Yep, this.
What I'm saying is that if we're making changes to the bylaw and the map and the protection area, I don't want it to just take away protection. I want to find potential sources, because once you develop the land, they're gone. So if we have potential sources, we need to, if we're making changes to the aquifer protection district and the map, I want to include the future potential sources so we can identify.
I don't know
them.
that there are any down this end of town, but yeah, they may be in other parts of town.
There's one on the rail trail area up that I.
Oh,
wanted to
yes,
kind of-
that's
and
right.
that actually is close to our, I think that's in that, isn't it? It's up by Carpenter Road?
No, it's
No,
not
I
in
think
this,
it's outside of this.
Just outside of
Okay.
this.
But we
But-
can include that
or just outside of
out
it.
there.
It's right over.
The other one is,
West Dudley.
that's when I want to try and see if we can.
But that's what I'm saying, if we can request a proposal from Jay,
I'll give him a
to
call
s-
tomorrow.
just to see how much it costs to have him do a preliminary, I mean, he must have all the geological data.
He
for the town
does.
anyway,
All he
so
would need is just the areas that we're talking about that I know.
He should be,
You
You
know,
know,
looking at-
you know what areas we're
Yeah,
looking
we
you
at.
know.
have yours, but I want him to tell us,
If there are
hey,
other-
based
What he
on,
thinks.
based on the geological structures, this may be a potential source, and anything that he identifies as a potential future source, I want to add it to the protection.
You know what? Him and I can meet and have a map, and I can show him at least what I have,
Right, what you have,
and
but I,
then he can look at that map and have his, go by his
But
setup. And
you have your thoughts based on what you know,
Yeah.
but, I mean, you're not a
He-
hydrogeologist.
He's
so-
got
yet.
He's got geological data that he can look at and say, you didn't consider this, but this would be a
Just hit him with a
potential
question,
source.
where do you think?
Right, so
Yeah,
I
be a
want him to
source.
give his opinion on what's,
Bob wants to have him do what he looking at
Yes.
what we have as a, and
but if
also
he misses
I have,
what you have,
what I have, but
have him added.
Yeah.
but I just don't want to agree to reduce protection areas
Right.
Yeah, and lose them.
and,
Yeah. Lose the opportunity.
but we don't have it anywhere on here, any future potential sources. And you need to protect those now, because
Yes.
otherwise they
gone.
come into a
Yeah,
development
like I say.
and,
Yep.
Once they're gone, they're gone.
We can't find any.
so, is
Okay.
that all I had, Jen?
Plus, you also need
Yeah,
your,
sorry. I just,
Okay,
I
Tom?
made the note.
I said them all
I
set.
had my
Okay.
notes, but I
All
forgot my
set.
notebook that I had on.
Sir? Okay, I didn't have anything else. Do we want to look at another meeting in a couple of weeks to get working on policies?
I think we need to make some headway, because we've had an awful lot of meetings that
Yeah.
We just keep pushing it off.
push it off, push it off, push it off.
Okay,
16th?
so.
weeks?
March. Oh, day before St. Patty's Day. Yeah, 16th, sound good?
Yeah.
March 16th, have a
Okay.
meeting.
We'll just see if there's a space available somewhere.
We should be able to meet in here.
Okay,
Same time?
Yep.
6:30, yeah. And if we can, if we do this, we can,
Make some progress.
we
Just
can
concentrate on business.
have the regular business on our monthly meeting, and then
Yeah.
on this mid-month meeting, have
Just policy work.
special stuff, and if we have no special stuff, then we can
Cancel.
cancel it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think we need to make some headway.
yes, we do. Okay,
Yeah, maybe in the meantime, Jen, you can find some of that paperwork we have in the office, from meter sizes to tie-in. I know
Got it all right
we've been writing it down for years, so we all can
Yep.
be
Okay.
briefed on what it is.
Chairman, a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.